I have been tracking a bounty hunter's story ever since 2016. Part 1 by WolfsCrown. Let's get straight into that. I'm a professional online tracker, part of a private investigation unit for a rich city. In other words, I can see anything that gets posted from the computers in this district. Our unit works with authorities to make sure the rest of the world thinks we are an insignificant town. But I will not tell further information because I want to keep my identity concealed. This case has been bothering me for years, even after we dismissed it. Years ago, a house and a part of a forest burned down. The media is not welcome in our district, so you probably never heard of this event. We are excellent at what we do. Probably most people never heard of this city. The incident was tracked to 2 posts that were immediately taken down. Anyone who read them were immediately silenced by another special division. Why am I posting this now? Simple. What is posted here, almost nobody believes it. Works of fiction, you may say. There is not much censorship as it was in past years. This is good for you, and for me. The following documents were classified and covered up by our district authorities, but I get a copy that I never disposed. My job was, and still is, to track 2 suspects that were linked to the incident in our town. We did not believe what the documents read until some federal agents came down to take over the case. I'll shut up and let you read what I have so you can make up your own mind. The following testimony was posted from a computer of a hotel at District 3 in a horror fanatic forum. Suspect was an 18-year-old girl at the time of the incident. Please help me. I beg to anyone who is reading my posts as of today, July 10th, 2016. I am posting this on this forum as a last resort. Other websites deleted my post because they thought I was joking, nor considered my words appropriate for their forum. I am desperate. I don't know what to do. After what I went through, nothing is the same. Monsters are real. I'm still having a hard time trying to figure whether the scary monsters my mum used to tell me about are real too. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not crazy. I just know what I saw. Please, read everything and help me decide what to do from now, because I'm terrified. I'm sorry for the terrible grammar. Even after 2 nights, I'm having a bad time gathering my thoughts, but I'll do my best to describe what happened. I am, or was, a night girl working at a bar. I got hired 1 week ago by the owner of a famous local bar after he promised me that I could get lots of money due to my youth and beauty. He insisted that he would support me, that I could have a decent life without having to worry about cash. And so I accepted because I needed that opportunity. Before you start judging me, I had to run away from home before getting hired. After my mother died, my stepfather and his son were becoming very abusive to me, pushing me or grabbing me without any reason. One day, my drunk stepfather entered my room at night. You can imagine what he wanted me to do. I tried to get away, but it was in vain since he just grabbed me and was holding me tightly, hurting my arms. He was very drunk, in tears, whispering my mother's name, and was beginning to lean closer to my face. Out of a miracle, he passed out and I ran away from the house. I was too scared and disgusted of my stepfather and the things he would have done to me if I was to stay more days with him. Again, sorry for stalling. I know you are here to read about what I saw and not about my family problems, but you need context. How I met my boss Rick is a long story. All you need to know is that his bar's main attraction, from 9 PM special event, where many girls like me would be auctioned in the bar. It's not a typical bar. In fact, it is in one of the wealthiest districts of the city. The people that were at the bar were usually wealthy, of class, and willing to spend large amounts of cash gambling. It was known that girls who worked there could make $500 a night if they were lucky enough to get contracted. The thing is that Rick was very greedy He always tried to get the most money out of the girls, pushing his luck with the clients that were often too drunk to think with the brain they have upstairs. He saw an opportunity in me, and he took advantage of my age, my virginity, and my looks to milk as much money as possible from the clients that came for the auction. I felt that I was his golden goose, and whenever I got on stage, he would make sure everyone put their eyes on me. I would dress in a somewhat revealing white dress, wear some makeup, have my hair done to look perfect for every night working there. I could hear prices from $1,000 to even $1,200, and I was flattered. But my boss would always keep turning down the offers because he said they could do better. I would get off stage pissed with Rick as he was walking me through the tables. I would keep my head down most of the time, or just not making any direct eye contact with the clients, since it was mostly grown men grinning and flirting with me. I guess I would thank Rick, since he always made sure no one touched me and always made formal conversation with them, trying to negotiate a fit price. Yet, it had been 3 nights and I haven't been sold. Sometimes I would scan around the bar to see the clients, mostly old men dressed in suits, smiling and laughing with expensive bottles at their table. There were also other individuals, such as gangsters or people that were doing drugs in the other side of the bar. Hell, one night I saw the police chief hanging out with gangsters at the table. Dice and poker players were at the tables in front of the bartender, while the auction was on the other side of the bar. But the stage was highly illuminated, and there were live TVs around the bar showing the girls that were getting in and out of the stage. We were treated like superstars, as a way for everyone to get their eyes on us. However, there was one person in there that stood out to me the most. It was a young guy, probably around 24 and 26. He had shoulder-length hair, leather jacket, dark jeans, dark shirt, no facial hair, and thus he looked a bit young. He would sit in front of the bartender. He would not gamble, and he would rarely drink. He would not hang out with anyone other than himself. He would just sit there, looking in my direction. I could tell, because sometimes I felt his heavy stare when I would come onto the stage. One of the girls tried to talk to him one night, and he just ignored her. He looked very out of place, but he seemed to have a lot of chats with the bartender. The first night I saw him, he was talking with her, holding a newspaper, laughing, but I could tell he was serious about something. Easily, he was the most attractive guy at the bar, and on the third night, I caught his eye. It was an intense stare while he was playing with the drink he had on his hand. He waved, and I took advantage that Rick was distracted, so I walked to the guy to have a conversation and perhaps make my first negotiation. This is the biggest regret I have. This very damn moment, to the point I wish I would have been sold to some old man. But I'm not going to lie, I had a crush on this guy. He looked very different. When I got close to him, I noticed he had a chain around his neck. Not too tight and not too long. He had clear eye colour and a very charming smile, in contrast with all the pigs that gave me an awkward or disgusting grin. We chatted a bit, and that was enough for me to get charmed by him, as I remember that I desperately wanted him to take me for the night. The moment I tried to know how much he would bid for me, my boss showed up. I made the usual talk and negotiation while putting his hands on my shoulders like I was his daughter. When Rick asked how much he would offer me, the guy smiled and pulled out $500. I was surprised because no one usually pays with cash. They make private transactions with special currency. Also, he didn't look like the kind of guy to be carrying that amount of cash around, nor look serious enough when he offered the money. My boss got irritated as if he got offended by the offer. I yelled at him to get out and find the cheap bitches outside the bar. The guy smiled and gave me a wink and just left without causing more commotion. At this point, I became enraged because I felt shattered. The one guy I liked, I had some decent money on him, got kicked out only for me to be probably sold to an old, disgusting man. I thought that I had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Out of desperation and anger, I walked out of the bar furiously, following the guy, and told him that I accepted his offer and wanted to get out of here. He hesitated, and I just began to push him out quickly before the shouting of Rick became louder as he was getting closer. We ran outside the bar towards the parking lot and got inside an elegant black car he had. He jetted out of there as I was pressuring him for us to leave quickly. Minutes have passed and it was an awkward silence. Not even music was playing on the radio. I thought the reason for the awkwardness was because I was quite nervous. After all, it was going to be my first time and I knew it was going to be soon with a guy I barely know. It was around 9:30 p.m. when instead of going home he took me to a cafe that was quite far from the bar. He explained to me that he was drinking water at the bar and was quite hungry for a snack. I accepted to get in there, and it felt almost like a date. I don't remember much of that part of the story. I just remembered that he was constantly looking outside the cafe through the window, as if he was expecting something to happen or was waiting for someone to show up. It was very dark and the streets were empty, so I couldn't exactly see what he was looking at. He was quite nervous too, and wasn't as upbeat, and for the most part was on his thoughts. On the way back to his car, he took off his jacket and began driving to the outside of town. I asked him if he lived outside the town, and he simply said, yeah. But he seemed nervous. It was a bit of a long ride, and the nerves were making my stomach uneasy, and I got cold due to the dress I was wearing. Everything became even worse when we got to an old house near the woods. We parked in front of the house and he got out telling me something that threw me off and got me a little bit confused. I'm going to go get something. Do not move or get out of this car, no matter what you see, no matter what you hear, and everything will be okay. He gave me a lame smile and then got out the car. I saw that he went behind the house and thought it was odd. I wasn't thinking properly. The nerves were just telling me that he probably just went to get protection and that we were probably just going to do it in the car. I took off my heels to get a little bit more comfortable and began pulling down the back zipper of my dress. Minutes felt so long and the winds were getting very loud to the point I could hear the wind hitting the windows. I noticed that I had 6 calls from Rick and I was scrolling through my phone. I heard something coming from the inside the house. I had to put my phone in my purse in the back seat, and after a couple of seconds, I heard again a very loud sound coming from inside the house. As much as I want to describe it, I can't say much since I thought that the wind was playing a trick on me. I opened the door since I wanted to stretch outside the car, and as I turned my head towards the front door, not even a second later, this creature breaks the door, jumping out of it very close to where the car was parked. I screamed in horror when I saw it was looking and sprinting at my direction. I got out of the car and ran with all of my energy out there towards the dark forest. I did not look back. I was in my terror, my heart was pounding out of my chest, and my eyes tearing up while I was running through the woods. I did not even feel my feet running over sharp little rocks and branches on the way through the darkness. I heard a loud metal noise behind me, and then I heard the roar of the beast getting closer and closer. It caught up to me and pushed me to the ground. I was crying and with all my might turned around to see the horrible beast. It was easily the size of a bear. The head was what made me cry even more. Imagine the skull structure of a human, but with a long mouth of the horse and extremely large ears, almost as wide as an elephant and pointy as a donkey. The eyes, they were very small in comparison to its large head, and they were shaped like a human, but were completely white. The lipless mouth, the disgusting yellow teeth were showing, even if the beast had its mouth closed. I couldn't see the rest of the body, since it had me pinned down with its 2 front legs, and it was too dark. I can tell you, it was not a bear. The creature had no claws. They were long fingers, and I really did not feel anything sharp, but as I felt as if it could crush my bones, it would keep pressing on me. The creature was staring at me and it opened its mouth, letting a bunch of saliva get onto my chest. I was disgusted and wanted to vomit to the putrid smell coming out of this mouth. When the creature's tongue was sticking out, I went deaf. I couldn't hear my own screams and saw light behind the creature, like a car's headlights, for a second. The creature quickly got off me as if it was in a panic and was moving in circles attacking something that wasn't there. That is when I noticed a shadow moving in the darkness, but I couldn't see the figure very well. It was all in black and was moving quickly through the field. I did not even notice it was shooting arrows at the beast at first. My hearing came back and began hearing a whimper or crying of the beast getting louder and louder. I tried to get up and run away, but my body failed me, and I fell on my knees out of pain in my feet and the horror that I was witnessing. This monster, or thing, looked like an almost hairless bear, bones almost sticking out of a torso, with long chunks of hair in its body. It had no tail. The way it was moving around was like seeing a spider manoeuvring around with its 6 feet. The 2 black legs looked human, while the other legs were less than muscular and bonier, looking like human arms with long fingers. I did not know if it was mad or scared desperately to get away from the shadow, but the beast had become slower in speed and the arrows were piercing his skin. A final arrow went through his neck, making the creature fall, and it was sounding as if it was running out of air. I turned and began seeing the shadow take a man's figure as he dropped the weapon, rushed the animal with a small axe he had on his back, and began smashing the creature's skull with an axe. I was on my knees in shock while the man was mutilating the beast while putting organs in his bag. I was silent, numb, and only felt the tears on my cheeks. I only thought I was going to be next. If he killed that beast, what am I to him? The man stood up and removed his gloves, and after I noted he had a dark mask, he removed it and looked at me. And when I recognized his face, he was the guy that I came with. I broke crying once again when he said that it was over. He maintained his distance and was trying to calm me down. I was in a dead silence the rest of the night, even when he took me back to the house, where I saw that the car was now smashed from one side as if it had been hit by a truck. It took me to the back of the house further down, where a motorcycle was hidden between some bushes. He left his backpack, and after grabbing some clothes, he also grabbed a container of gasoline to burn the house. He explained to me that the house had to be burned down, and honestly, I wasn't paying attention. When he came out of the house, he was wearing the same bar clothes with a leather jacket. I was still in my head trying to process what had happened. He didn't burn the house. He gave me my heels and we were on our way. He asked me where he could drop me off. I just mumbled nonsense since I couldn't speak. He took me to a hotel and it took a while for me to get into the room. I guess the man in reception thought I was drunk. He took me to a room and gave me the keys, gave me the money he had and said that he was sorry before quickly leaving the room. I spent the most of that time in the shower, cleaning the monster's saliva that I felt was on me. The next day I did not eat. I stayed in a room crying the whole day. The reception often came by to see if I was okay, but I did not want to talk to them. They would have thought I was crazy. I didn't receive any phone calls that day. I thought my boss was still pissed at me or had fired me. I began writing that day to ask for help, but as I said before, they took me for a troll and I got banned from most forums that I posted this. No, I did not call the police. I know they wouldn't believe me, but today was different. I was more composed and got out of my room to go see Rick and try and move on. I took a shower. I had to put on the same dirty white dress from that day. While I was heading out, the reception man recognized me and told me he had a box for me, along with some flowers. I took the package and flowers, asking twice if it was really for me. He only nodded and said, "Room 201, my door number." I went back to my room and opened the package. Could Rick have known where I was? I thought. After all, he knew everybody and probably located me. I opened the package and broke down in tears. It was a bunch of money, my cell phone, my purse. But I put it all aside to what my eyes were seeing. It was a black hockey mask, along with a letter that only had a note inside. The note had a bunch of numbers and I only realised a little after. It was a phone number. Now I am here, writing my story again, hoping to reach someone out there with a similar experience as me. What do I do with my life? Rick hasn't called me in 2 days. I have no job, no friends, no family, and live in a town where there are probably more monsters out there. I guess I felt safe with that guy. He protected me and saved my life. But it is because of him that I will never sleep again. I want to dial the number. I want to find him and make him take me with him, because I know only he can protect me from the monsters lurking in the dark. This is the end of the testimony. I will post the second document tomorrow if this doesn't get deleted. I have been tracking a bounty hunter's story ever since 2016. Part 2 by WolfsCrown. Let's get straight into that. Second document. It was posted outside a town from an unknown device on a hidden forum. Title: A Wolf's Journal. If this is the first page of my journal you read, you should know that I am a bounty hunter. I hunt monsters, humans, cryptid, no difference as long as there is enough cash involved. To clarify, I am not a hunter raised to kill monsters, nor a government agent or a soldier. I do not get along with them. We don't have the same goals, and they despise my work. I work only for money. I am not a hero, and surely expect you and many to question my methods of hunting. My methods are not perfect, nor are they carefully crafted to save everyone, but they are efficient to get the job done. I take my contracts from witches, or that's what I call them. They are sometimes called mediums and communicate with spirits. Thus, they often sense dangerous negative energy and monsters from a fair distance. They pay very generously for alchemy materials that I get from these monsters, such as the eyes of a Wendigo, lycanthrope's heart or tongue, you name it. I would get in detail about what they do with these materials, as I once worked very closely with a witch that made cursed objects and sold them to people to get power positions or to harm others. But this story is not about that. I have killed plenty of things, and I always write in my journal in case something happens to me. I decided to post this story mainly to let other bounty hunters know that I'm still around, and give them a recording of how I killed this disgusting creature. They are rare, and you will know why. July 6th, 2016. I read a local newspaper case where there were 2 girls that were reported missing, along with 2 men that were last seen with them walking out of a certain bar. Most people and some amateur hunters would disregard this case as an instance where 2 arseholes abducted the girls, abandoned town, and that's it. There are some details that led me to investigate furthermore the disappearance of these 4 individuals. City had a large forest right after leaving the city. The time frame between the girls going missing was 3 days, and one of the girls and 1 man were last seen last night. 3 days reminded me of a previous similar encounter, and my gut was telling me that there was something else in there. As I further investigated, I got to the bar where the girls were last seen. Let me tell you, it was more like a fancy casino. An entree fee of $80. Fuck me. Anyways, you would think the bar would get closed by authorities, but that was not the case. The bar was operating like nothing ever happened or anything weird was going on. There weren't many people there, so I approached the bartender and asked him if he knew the girls that went missing. He said that he knew one of the girls. She worked there for a man named Rick in the night shift. I could tell that the bartender wasn't a fan of Rick, but he could not give me more information since he did not work there in the night shift. What I did get from him is that these 2 girls were what they refer to as night girls, which I thought would offer adult services. They disappeared right after they got sold in an auction that the bar has at 9 PM. Apparently the town does not have problems allowing such an event, since the bartender did not even try to keep the secret or keep his voice low. Once I left the bar, I got to a hotel room to put my gear and organise myself. If it was what I thought it was, then there was no time to lose. I guess I look like an average arsehole that goes to the bar at night, so I'd fit in perfectly with the crowd. I went to the bar at night now with more money, parked my motorcycle, paid the damn entree fee again, and made my way to the bartender for further information. Jesus Christ, I did not fit in at all with the crowd. People that were there looked like they not only had money, but also power and influence. It helped that there was a motorcycle club playing poker on one side of the bar and a bunch of hippies smoking on one corner. Anyways, I sat in front of the bartender and asked for a glass of water. She smiled and took advantage that no one was asking for drinks and began to chat with her to get more information about the missing people. At 9:10 p.m, the big TV and all the TVs around the bar suddenly changed channel to a live stream showing a bright stage. It took me a minute to notice it was this bar stage that was in the other side. A man emerged from a curtain, a man of ego, lust and greed. I saw in the TV he was wearing a white suit. It was like a formal auction, but he was offering his clients women to take home for the night. I wasn't paying much attention after most of the girls were selling rapidly for $200 to $500. There is no possible way for me to track all these individuals in case there was a killer among them, I thought. The bartender had told me that the two suspects were ordinary men, and that they had to abort the other girls that were still working there. It was a doable case, but none of the signals that I was looking for were there. I was thinking that maybe it was an abduction case, until my attention was taken by one man yelling $1,000. I looked at the TV to see what the hell, and there was this girl on stage. She looked quite young, but had enlightening beauty. She was blonde and wearing a very revealing white dress. For an instant I thought I was glaring at a real angel. The whole casino was silent, only with the classical music playing on in the background. The atmosphere broke when the man doing the auction turned down the offer. He was laughing and said that perhaps tomorrow there would be a better buyer, and that she was worth way more. The TVs went back to normal, and the auction was over at 10 p.m. I was about to leave, but on my way back I noticed that the girl and the man were walking among the tables. The way the man was holding the girl by his side, his behaviour, not letting her out of his side, the grin he had, everything clicked. I left the bar, and as I got on my motorcycle I whispered, "Exorcism." Now the real fun began. I've hunted this thing before, not the typical monster you read on the internet. They are very secretive and are very careful when hiding their identity, until they get sloppy in their mating season. They usually have 3 female victims, usually young to the liking of the beast. There is a time frame of 3 to 4 days between the victims disappearing, and so it made sense. There was still 1 victim left, and time was running out. Right now, I thought, I needed the location of its lair, and he will lead me right to it before anything tragic happens. I stayed overnight and waited for the man to get out of the bar, and I followed him with my eyes and saw the vehicle he drives and took a quick picture of the plate number. That's all I needed to know for now. I came back to the hotel and began making preparations. It's often an advantage that I don't use firearms. I don't have a license for them, nor would I have space for them in my backpack. I know what I hunt, and I don't make the same mistakes twice. If you are a hunter, you have to be quick in making decisions. Take too long, and the beast gets away. Move too fast, and you get yourself killed. As I said before, I'm doing this for the money. An equisaria only transforms during its mating acts, as far as I know. They live 95% of their life in human form, but when they need to mate, they transform, and you can imagine what they do to the victims. These things are only males. There are no females in their species. I once heard from another bounty hunter that these things had some sort of connection with skinwalkers, but I don't give a damn. I need to kill it when it's transformed to get the materials from its corpse. The only time they show their true form is when they are alone with the victim. And if you are still reading this, I guess it intrigues you to know more about this monster. It gets graphic. The girl who bears the child disappears, and then there is no trail of her body, as if she was devoured. There are 2 theories. One says that the little fuck monster eats the mother, which is the best explanation if you still want to sleep at night. The second theory, one I heard from a witch, said that these little cunts actually absorb the mother to form themselves, meaning they reuse the skin tissue to form their body while the rest of the victim corpse is used for the infant's nutrients to develop. In many instances, the equisaria in its adult form shows chunks of hair coming from its body that are like the victim's. Also 1 pair of legs, 2 female arms that can possibly be the mother's limbs. Not pleasant to imagine, I assume, but also even less pleasant to witness. July 7th, 2016. This morning, I went out to gather my resources to kill this monster. I needed poisoned, piercing arrows. It won't kill it, but it sure will immobilize the creature, or at the very least slow it down. The poison is a very simple recipe. If you are a hunter, you know which one I'm talking about. If you don't, then I won't risk the recipe to fall to the hands of amateurs. To kill the beast, I go old school, and I use a silver axe that I always carry with me. I'm excited. The Equisaria are very rare and sells extremely well in the right markets. I could easily make $3,000 if I don't damage the materials. So, I need a flashbang, a black mask, black gloves, and a car, I thought. If this is the first time you are hearing about this creature, pay attention to this. The flashbang is necessary to really hurt the son of a bitch. They have incredible auditory senses and use their ears more than their eyes. Don't get me wrong, they are not blind, but they are more efficient at using their hearing to track their target. They transform at night, which is why I always have dark camouflage gear in my backpack. But I still needed a mask and gloves to fully cover my body. If the flashbang damages its ears, the creature will use their eyes to look for me, but it would barely see me if I looked like a shadow. The mask is extremely important in case things go south and the Equisaria escapes. These things hold grudges, and if I was going to spoil its meal, he would track me wherever I go if he knew my identity. I forgot to mention that I use a spray can to cover my scent. We humans tend to have a very pleasant smell to most cryptids. As far as the car, I would just have to steal one, since I do not want to damage my motorcycle. The plan was very simple. Go to the nest at noon, kill the monster's infants who should be harmless, hide my gear close by, and get back to the bar. When the show starts, I would go inside and shoot an arrow to the wheel of the monster's car so it will give me enough time to get back to the nest and get ready to kill it when it gets there and fully transforms. Anyways, I went outside and spent all day buying the stuff I needed, and then went back to the bar at night to see what happens. What if the girl sold today? Everything would have gone to shit, and I had to leave town empty pockets. You cannot rush these things. Preparation must be made. Even a hunter would know better and not kill the guy, even if he just wants to prevent another person from dying. This is a very rich district, and there is police everywhere. The kill had to be done outside town to not get in trouble with authorities. During its mating season, they constantly go to their nest to check on their infants at night. I took advantage of that. Today, I followed his car in with my motorcycle, and it led me to what looked like an old house outside the town surrounded by forest and the highway. Of course, I had to keep driving forward when he turned to the house in order to not raise any suspicion. I waited for an hour, came back to see it was not there anymore. I suck at tracking time and forgot that I just had 24 hours left before the beast acts on. I went outside the house to hide my motorcycle and noticed there were 2 cars outside the back of the house. They were open, keys inside as if they were left there, and I imagined they did not belong to the beast. It was a dark car and a blue Mustang. I chose the dark car mainly because it blends with the dark. I picked a lock from the back door of the house to not waste time tomorrow, but that was about it. The infants were probably still moving around since they are nocturnal creatures. I came back to the hotel with my new car and grabbed everything to put it in the trunk to be ready for the big day tomorrow. Hopefully, I will still be alive to tell the tale. July 8th, 2016. These creatures do not deserve to be alive. Angels smiled upon me. Very early morning, I went to the old house or the nest. Now fully geared, I broke into the house. Dark house, lights didn't work. I had to use my flashlight to navigate around the house and make my way to the 2nd floor. The place reeked of human blood, and there was a trail of blood leading upstairs. The odour and the trail led me to one room. Inside was the rest of the hunter. This is what you fucks get for trying to be the hero. Next to the body was a pistol with silver bullets scattered around it. Girl must have thought she was hunting a werewolf. It looked like she was still alive before bleeding to death. Her wounds were very serious, and her legs were broken. On her hand was a note. I did a quick glance at it, and it had the address of a house along with the words, "I love you." I imagine she wants me to tell her family of her fate, so I took the necklace and the note to fulfill her last wish. I might not get along with the hunters, soldiers or agents, but they are the ones that put their lives on the line every day to let their kids and other people live normally and worry only about buying the next phone or get a job. I went downstairs to the basements, axe on one hand, flashlight on the other. The smell of blood was stronger than before. First thing I saw were the rest of the two missing males, with chunks of flesh and bone floating in urine, blood and feces. I was admiring the sight until I heard movement on one side. I quickly turned to see the infants, or at least the only one who was still alive. No hesitation, you rush these things before anything happens. I killed the little pest before it had any chances to crawl away. This is when I noticed the other infant was missing its head. So probably these two had a friendly brawl between brothers. I crushed both parasites before leaving the basement and returning to the second floor to leave everything ready for the night. I settled the crossbow with the arrows, 2 flashbangs and my camouflage gear. I figured I'd have to use my knife to deal with the wheels of the Exorcising's car, so it would save me time. I would have left the bar after the girl would have been sold, or just before 10 PM after the auction was over. Either way, the creature would be in a nest by midnight with the girl, so it can do its last transformation. I was at the bar at night, even earlier since I had to think of all the possibilities. Time passed quickly. I was also getting anxious. The auction started, and it went by similarly as before. But now someone yelled, $1,200 for the girl, and she wasn't sold. This threw me off. The previous kills showed that the girl was sold to someone, and then the Exorcising tracked them and brought them to its lair. Was he going to convince someone to buy her? I was playing with my drink, very mortified in my mind, when the blonde girl in the dress looked at me while walking with her boss. Shit. If she had known what the bastard would do to her this night. I signalled for a hello and smiled. She started walking towards me and we began talking. She seemed like a very nice girl that night, very flirtatious. But then the beast came up to me and we looked eye to eye. I wanted to grab him, kill him on the spot, but that would be stupid. I grinned at him. After all, this was the night he was going to be prey. He wanted to sell me the girl, and well, I had $500. I showed him the cash knowing he would reject the offer. And hilariously enough, he kicked me out. I laughed and gave a wink to the girl, my way of saying everything was going to be okay. I started walking away to the door when I heard the girl yelling. Before I could even turn to see what's up, I felt a pair of hands pushing me out the place. It was the blonde girl. She was pushing me, saying that she wanted to get out of here with me. I wasn't looking at her. I got petrified when I looked at the monster's anger in its eyes. That was the look of a predator looking at its prey, and now it was pissed at me. The door closed and I rushed to the car and got the hell out of there. Out of all the possibilities of things that could have gone wrong, this had to be the one that was way worse than anything. Now the cunt had seen my face, and not only that, I stole its meal. I had an hour and a half before midnight, and my head, I was already dead and on my guard, looking behind the car to see if I was being followed. I decided to go for a last meal at a local cafe with a young girl who still looked pissed or embarrassed. I invited her to dinner. After all, if things went south, this was our last meal on Earth. Most of the time we spent eating. I was looking outside the window to see if the Exorcising was roaming and waiting for us. Or I just felt it was going to appear at any moment. I'm usually the hunter, not the one being hunted. 30 minutes before midnight, I drove the girl to the nest. There was no point in delaying the beast to show up. I decided to wait exactly 30 minutes before I go to the house, because that way the girl will still be in the car. And if things went well and lucky, the Exorcising would get to the nest and I would just have to throw everything at it. When we arrived at the house, I noticed that the girl was extremely nervous. I just told her to ease off, but that she should remain in the car, and no matter what, she never ever leaves, no matter what she sees or hears. She just looked confused while playing with her hair, so I just left the car. I entered the backside, went upstairs and sprayed myself to cover my scent or prescent. Then I heard one window break on downstairs. I wasn't even fully geared. My crossbow was at the other side of the room, and I only had one flashbang and my axe on my side. Remember what I said? Don't be the hero. Well, realistically, you can't. It arrived earlier than I thought, and it was a mistake that could have cost me my life. I gently lowered my body to not make a sound. I heard the damn thing coming upstairs, and I began sweating. I guess it helped that the wind outside was covering my sweat hitting the floor. But suddenly everything went silent. I would not have been surprised if the thing could still hear my breathing or my loud heartbeat. It landed on the other side of the wall, outside the room. It sounded like a cannon, and it moved me a little. I was already opening the flashbang when I heard a noise outside. The sound of the car door opening. The girl had just dug her own grave. I felt the thing launched from where it was downstairs to going outside the house. Its strong limbs allowed it to launch forward, having a capacity to hit like a bulldozer and jump large distances like a jumping spider in its 6 limbs. I started putting everything on, my gear, getting this crossbow ready, backpack on, axe, flashbang on hand, mask and gloves on. I heard the girl screaming and the sound of the monster hitting the car. I acted quickly. I rushed outside and I just saw the damaged car. I could hear the beast running towards the dark forest, and so I ran towards it. I saw the beast on top of the girl and quickly threw a flashbang. I turned, then looked back and quickly began shooting at the beast with the poisoned arrows. The dark camouflage worked like a charm. The monster had trouble seeing me. And without its ears, you are invincible. My 5th arrow crossed its neck and the thing was already slow and whimpering. I felt the rush in my blood. I dropped the crossbow and rushed the creature with my axe. I crushed its skull with 3, 4, 5, 6 slashes. I was mad. I could feel the blood getting through the mask to my face. I was enjoying it. After completely killing it, I began extracting important parts of the creature. The heart, the eyes, the teeth, the 4 ring fingers, and the 3 flasks of blood. I stood up and noticed the girl looking at me in fear. Was she afraid of me? I told her that it was over. The beast was dead. I tried calming her down and tried explaining to her what happened. But I guess I didn't communicate well since she looked paler than she was. We went back to the house. She was grabbing my arm, crying and mumbling. I took her to the motorcycle that was behind the house and explained to her that first I had to grab my stuff and burn the house down to avoid some unfortunate soul to wander in and see the monsters in the basement. I guess she understood, and so I went to the basement and scattered the gasoline I had, but did not light it. I went to the car outside for my jacket and noticed the girl's belongings. I just left her stuff there except for the heels. I will return for them tomorrow, after I came back and burned everything to ash. I took everything with me along with the girl. I kept asking where she lived, but she was just quietly singing to herself on the way back. I took her to my hotel room, and the receptionist gave me crap because he thought I was going to abuse the girl. I explained that I was not going to stay there, and that she would fill the remaining days that I had left in my room. It was 2 a.m, so there wasn't anyone in the lobby than him. I told him to follow us if he did not believe me, and he followed. I left the girl to her room and gave her the money that I had that night on me. I went back to the house, guilt in me after seeing how broken I left the girl in the room. Now you see why other hunters don't like me, why I work alone. I don't have time to deal with people, not anymore. I don't want any bonds. I only have one thing that I care about, I thought, until I heard her voice. I stopped in the middle of the road. It was her. Sometimes I feel her presence, and mixed too. I continued the road, burned the house, went back to the carcass of the beast and covered it in dirt and stones and branches and so on. Before leaving, I took the girl's belongings. July 9th, 2016. I did not sleep. I went back to the witch and gave her the stuff. I took her a couple of hours to come back, but she gave me my money. As quickly as she handed my money and I gave her the materials, she began chugging the blood to verify it was a matured equisaria. The infants don't sell, and their materials are useless, and their proportions are quite insignificant. Either way, I now had $3,200 in cash. Guilt was raging over my head as I remembered the voice of last night and the poor girl I left. What have I done? I destroyed her life. She saw a monster and probably has no idea of what could have happened to her. Does she have a family? Shit. She is scared for life. I just left without answering any questions. I bought a box, put my mask inside of it so she knew it was me who sent it. I wrote a note to her with my phone number in case she needs my help, or I guess answer her questions. I also added to the box her phone, purse and all the money I had got from the contract because she helped in killing the beast, risked her own life and against her own will. Yeah, I don't deserve it. I bought some flowers out of my pocket for her to hope she recovers. Best case scenario, her mind plays that memory is a bad dream and continues to live life normally. I left the flowers in the box to the receptionist at the hotel, gave him the room number and told him to deliver her the flowers as soon as possible, or as soon as she was feeling better. I guess I'm going to rest elsewhere. July 10th, 2016. It's already late. I investigated the address of the note left by the dead hunter. It is a town in Illinois, and it is quite far, but I guess I must deliver. That's what they would have wanted me to do. This life is not easy. This journey leads only to one end. I still need a bunch of cash, and I can't afford to work for free or get sentimental again. But I did it for them, for the Wolf's pack, not for the dead hunter or the girl. Interesting. Phone is ringing. These were the posts that were censored and taken down by us. The girl and the guy in question abandoned town on July 10th, 2016. The case was closed after the feds went to the forest and did their own investigation. After reading these posts, we were not given any information, only that we should not speak of the incident again. We obeyed, but I have been keeping track of both individuals. They kept posting, but on another website. Who knows? Maybe I will upload other parts of the Wolf's Journal here in the future. Wow. Awesome stuff. Thank you ever so much, WolfsCrown, for the permission to narrate the story on the channel and share it with all of the wonderful community here. As ever, guys and girls, please do let me know down below in the comments what you thought. Please do like and share, help build our channel and our community further and help us smash through that 30,000 subscriber mark. I hope you're all well and happy and looking forward to a wonderful, warm weekend, chilling out and relaxing, listening to your favourite shows, or spending time with friends and family. And above all, remember, be safe, not sorry. I have been tracking a bounty hunter's story ever since 2016. Part 3. Let's get straight into that. Archives. It's been a while since I had updated this story. As I said in my previous post, maybe I will continue posting regarding this case. It is not as easy as copying and pasting archives. The reason why I was able to get the previous documents so easily is because they were posted in our city. Thus, our programs easily detected where they were posted, who posted them, IP addresses, a transcription of what was posted, and all sorts of private information. It took me weeks to track those too, and the search led me to a very interesting forum on what I thought was within the deep web. But I was wrong, or at least I don't think it is the deep web. The website's forum was locked behind some code, and it took me several tricks in order to unlock the access to it. I had the username of one of the suspects, Crimson. For each post of this username, I had to do everything again, and it was a very lengthy process. That is the username of the bounty hunter I have been tracking all of this time, while the girl who went missing had the username Lullaby. This is probably the last time I will communicate with you, as I will post only the journal entries from now on. The website doesn't allow me to copy and paste these stories, so I must take pictures and write them myself. Not easy to do, especially if you have a full-time job like I do. I also really wish I could tell you that these journals are nothing other than fiction, fairy tales, or horror stories. But after that incident, the federal agent's private investigation on the burned house in 2016, well, I don't know what to tell you. Make up your own conclusions and believe whatever you want to believe. I only tell you that I pray every night to God that these journals are nothing but just stories. Post title: Ominous May. Posted by Crimson on May 13th, 2011. Hello everyone. I've taken notice that this forum is mainly used for you hunters to tell your stories, share strategies and tips on how to become better at what we do. I've read many stories, kept track of usernames, updating crazy tales of hunting and sharing heartwarming family photos. But unfortunately many other hunters never come back to keep updating us. God help them, and hopefully they're still alive. I will take advantage now that Ominous May is trending. I guess we share why we get into this profession, huh? Or why we are crazy enough to keep doing what we do. Alright, I guess I'll start writing my own journal starting from now on. Today, I will tell you why I chose this path, or exactly why this path chose me. I hope I don't get much off tangent since this is the first time I publish in this forum. The rules state that we can't share our real names, but I've seen lots of posts of people recognising each other by nicknames they earned based on experiences they have gone through, like One-Eye Bill, Slippery Frank, or the Ghoul Hugger. So, I cannot tell you my identity, but I can tell you that I'm 19 years old and just recently started my hobby as a hunter. Reader, you may find useful information regarding how to find and destroy evil spirits, demons, or whatever these things are in the unnatural world. I specialise on sending them back to where they come from, or at least I think that is what I do. I work alone, but before you all start filling my comments about how stupid I am for doing this stuff at my age, you should read what I have to say. I already have experience dealing with spirits, and let me clarify that I am not a ghostbuster. In fact, I do this sort of thing as a part-time job for reasons that you should know. But first, let me tell you how I got dragged into this shithole. A couple of months ago, I went through some event that got me to where I am now. Many people would believe it's paranoia, night terrors, or the trauma that sleep paralysis causes. But this was not the case. I am a sort of college student, a regular guy, you might say. I didn't belong to any crazy cults nor even consider myself the religious type at that point. It all started with a nightmare that I had of a tall, menacing, dark figure. Everything in the dream was black, cold, and overall an abysmal atmosphere. I was in a dark forest, as I could see the tall trees and their leaves being moved by the chilling breeze. However, in the centre of my field of vision there was a tall, dark figure, and this was the first time I'd ever seen such a thing. It appeared in front of me, and I could not see anything apart from its dark robe and tall stature. As it was standing in front of me, its gentle touch on my forehead caused me to feel extreme nausea, blurry vision, and severe weakness in my whole body. The figure began to produce a sound as soft as a whisper, but as loud enough to make my blood boil and raise to my mouth, drowning me. I know it's difficult to imagine, but I guess there is no other way to describe it, apart from what I felt, as my mouth began filling itself with my own blood, feeling my soul being taken away and my eyes losing vision as the seconds passed. With the last shortage of breath I had, I began praying. I couldn't tell this was a dream. So, in what I thought were my final moments, I heard the echo of the prayer that my grandmother taught me when I was little. It was resonating in my thoughts as I was beginning to faint, and that prayer is my way of telling myself that everything was going to be okay, hoping that something will hear my plea. As I began saying the prayer, the creature pushed me to the ground and vanished while blending itself within a dark environment. I could no longer see through my eyes as I was floating above myself, looking at my own body lying in the darkest of grasses, alone. The sound of the creature going away mixed with the heavy winds going to the depths of that forest as everything was getting darker Everything was fading. I woke up. Just a nightmare? I thought. Yeah, how fucking wrong I was. Every now and then, I would get woken up at night by the strong negative energy. Pure evil. I was not feeling fear. I was feeling terror. Night after night, I was afraid of this thing. I knew it was going to come and just stare at me when I was on my bed, trying to sleep. How is this possible? Maybe it is nothing but my own paranoia. Maybe there's nothing. Am I going crazy? I thought, while covered my face with my blanket as slow as I could. I was trying to calm myself, sweating and freezing at the same time, but this night I felt something gently touching my arm, freezing my whole body in shock. This is when I realised the creature, or whatever the fuck it is, was in front of me, waiting for me to open my eyes. I was screaming and panicking inside and remembered the prayer. I thought I could pray out loud so the creature will hear me and go away. As I tried praying, my voice was cracking out of terror. Also, I don't think I sounded very manly. I thought I was going to die anyway. My ears were ringing and I could taste blood in my mouth until everything came back to normal in an instant. The creature left, but I still felt its finger on my arm. There is no shame in admitting that I cried that day, since I was living a real nightmare. I told my parents about this and, surprisingly enough, they were not skeptical. You know the cliche of parents not believing your story? Well, this for sure broke the rule, as they thought they were going to send me to a psychologist to give me sleeping pills. They believed me right away. They made their best effort to tell me that everything was going to be okay, but I could tell they were very worried. My family is very religious, and after I told them about my experiences, they directed me to a person that could tell me how to deal with this stuff. You have to be kidding me. A damn fortune teller. This is your solution. I whispered to my father in disbelief. He told me that she was a friend of his, and that she was really good at what she does, and that she is what folk consider a medium, and let you speak with the dead. Honestly, I had nothing to lose by going to see such person. It's not like I had any other options. Even if the solution was a placebo, I just wanted to sleep without a fucking thing bothering me again. I had recently bought a motorcycle and I decided to pay a visit to such a person by myself. I arrived at her locale and it looked very average to me. A house in a private neighbourhood with a sign outside her yard that said something about tarot cards, fortune telling and that kind of stuff. I took more interest in the big bright $50 sign as it was a great deal. Yeah, a great deal for her wallet, I thought as I was getting off my motorcycle and walked towards her door. After knocking the door a couple of times, she received me as if she was my aunt. She gave me the story of how she and my father met and had been great friends ever since whatever. I wasn't paying attention. Even though she looked old, she was moving as if she was 30 and full of life. The most interesting thing about her, aside from the ridiculous bandana she had on her head, was a tattoo of an odd symbol she had on her left hand. I could not tell you more since I only glanced at it for a millisecond. Her house was very clean, but there was an odd vibe around it, and she was old, and she had a black cat that would just stare at me from afar. She caught my attention after she started acting preoccupied and took a closer look at me. She touched my arm, exactly at where the creature had touched me. She asked me in a very soft voice, trying not to alarm me, what had happened to me. This changed everything as I felt that I could talk to her. How in hell could she have possibly known where exactly that creature touched me? After I explained everything in detail, she gave me a solution to my problem on how to get rid of the evil spirit for good. Yes, it was just an evil spirit, a strong one apparently, since spirits in general cannot touch mortals. No, guys, there is no magical weapon that lets you kill evil spirits. Instead, she gave me a long prayer and another paper that had a Latin chant written on it. I was ordered by her to say such prayers before going to bed. Let me tell you that it worked. Nothing happened ever since. I slept tranquil for days, until very stupidly I stopped doing the routine. It had passed around 2 weeks. Exams were coming in and I just forgot about everything, until one night I woke up by a familiar scent, an old friend. This time was different. Something was off. The energy was not only stronger and denser, I could feel the anger in the atmosphere. The energy was so strong that I could feel the aura of the thing. And this time I felt it getting on my bed. I felt as if something was hovering above me, then landed one foot at a time until it laid down completely beside me. The bedsheets started moving as if something was pulling them towards the opposite direction, leaving me completely exposed. Silence was overwhelming my conscience as my body temperature was through the roof. I was beyond afraid. But I calmed myself down after a couple of seconds. You see, I was prepared. After my visit to the medium, I studied the Latin chants and the long prayer repeatedly until I had memorized them for good. I had realized that if this thing was a demon and wanted to kill me, it was a fight where either it or me were going to survive that night. I spent lots of days rehearsing, lots of days reading the damn chant, training myself to say it, even if there was a total chaos around me. As I was thinking, the creature grabbed my arm with its freezing touch, started to make a familiar sound that it made on my nightmare. I, without moving a muscle and closing my eyes as hard as I could, murmured the Latin prayer as the dark figure aura was embracing me. I do not know if fate flipped a coin and landed on my favour, but the thing stopped grabbing my arm and began to retrieve itself as if it was being dragged towards the opposite side of my room. I felt a strong, fresh breeze on my face as the negative energy was being aggressively sucked towards something that I did not want to see. I could only hear the spirit unreal yelling in pain, dragging the bedsheets with it towards what I felt was a portal that opened or something with tremendous power. I kept going, praying, citing other prayers as my voice grew louder. I heard the yelling transforming into a high-pitched sound getting lower and lower until I didn't hear anything but cruel silence. I won't lie, I waited a couple of minutes before I had the balls to stand up and turn on the lights. I saw my bed, and it was a mess. The bed sheets were on the corner of the room. As I extended them on my bed, I noted long claw marks that teared the fabric. I was shocked to see such a thing, but there was something that had a peculiar glow. It looked like goo, and it had a very light whitish glow. It was along the claw marks, while other parts of the substance were scattered around on my wall. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a flask to get as much of the substance inside of it. I didn't sleep that day. I stared at such a substance for the rest of the night. I moved the flask up and down, observing how very sticky like the slime was. My parents were not home that day. I'm an only child and they had trusted me with the house. What a story I had to tell when they come back a week later, I thought. The next day, I skipped school. Went straight to the medium, or the lady that helped me get the prayers. My guts were telling me that I needed to go to her at the time, and so I missed my morning class. When I got to her house, I noticed that the promo sign was no longer on the yard, and the cat was waiting for me in the front of the door, as if it was expecting me. She received me into her house, and was beginning to tell me she was going to go away for a vacation. I had the flask with the goo, wrapped with a warm cloth towel, before she took notice of it. As I revealed the flask, I was weirded out that the goo had taken a very different form. However, it was still glowing a bit. It looked more like spider webs, but in liquid form, I guess. The lady was left speechless and asked me to take a closer look. She was fascinated and told me that it had been a while since she had seen such stuff. According to her, it was ectoplasm, not common at all. Spirits leave this stuff behind very rarely. In other words, you have a better chance of winning a local lottery than having to pull off what I did. Damn luck. I felt so badass and was extremely happy at the same time. She even offered me a sum of money for it. I refused. Common? Ectoplasm? Don't give me shit. I didn't care if no one believed it was what it was. I would have kept it as a trophy. But she kept insisting, convinced me that offering $1,000 in cash. I didn't ask too many questions, as I was in awe of the amount of money I now had on my hands. Before you ask, yes, I did fuck up her vacation trip, and she later asked me to put back the sign advertising her services on her front yard. I remember her explaining that ectoplasm is very essential material in real alchemy, or rituals that only gifted people practice privately. And so, I thought that this could be a very interesting part-time job that I could have. Of course, the money clouded my mind, and I did not realise how hard it will be to encounter another spirit and for it to leave ectoplasm behind. No matter, I decided that in my 3 days I would investigate for local stories of haunted places. So far, I had only met fanatics of the paranormal subject entering abandoned buildings and then shitting their pants whenever they hear the slightest of movement. I have met scammers that claim they have trapped a ghost in their house and people that strongly believe they have seen a ghost. You might be interested in the prayer I do. Well, according to the medium, it sends the spirits back to the realm they come from, to either purgatory or hell, where they can pay for the harm they have done in the mortal world. It seems like I'm an exorcist of sorts. I have sent back 5 spirits to the other world, counted also the spirit I wrote about. The other 4 spirits were not as menacing, nor left anything behind, but it's still quite a sight to see them get dragged to another dimension by an unknown force. Don't worry, hunters, I don't take video of this stuff. I'm not looking for fame nor TV shows on my ass asking me for interviews. Nor do I want the regular folk to see this stuff for real. They will just be a nuisance to me anyways. While I have been lucky these past months, recently I found out about an old abandoned school outside of town. The gentleman that lives near that building claims that there is an evil spirit lurking in the halls of the 2nd floor. People have sighted it from afar, stuff flying around within what they say they can see are classrooms through the broken windows. The gentleman always warns teenagers dumb enough to get close to the school that it can be a traumatic encounter. Rumour has it that even authorities refuse to get close to that building, and that phones stop working when you step into the halls. Well, I guess it's time for me to take a visit to such school, don't you think? I have been tracking a bounty hunter's story ever since 2016. Part 4. Let's get straight into that. Title: A Trial That Brought Life Back to Me. Posted by Lullaby on July 17th, 2016 at 11:32 p.m. Tonight is a very dark night. Not even stars can be seen up in the sky other than a shining moon. The blustery wind is the only sound I'm hearing as I am writing this on my phone. I watch as my tears hit the glass of the screen. I want my old life back. I want to be with my mum and forget about all of this. My name is Jessica. I am 18 years old and I got dragged to a different world by a guy whom I thought was a hero. How stupid and naive I am. A silly little girl, as mother used to say. You probably have read my post regarding the monster that pinned me down in the forest a week ago, about the horror I went through and my plea for help regarding what to do next. This is a follow-up, and hopefully you will understand why I did what I did. I decided to call the guy that saved me that night. I told him I wanted to see him, and thus he came to talk to me at my hotel room. He was carrying a backpack and had his motorcycle helmet on his hand. It was no ordinary helmet and it had a very odd design. He came in wearing the same leather jacket and jeans, while his long hair looked wet and was down to his shoulders, like the very first night I saw him. I asked why he gave me so much money and what the fuck happened that night. He explained that it wasn't his plan to have gotten that bad, nor to have gotten me hurt in any circumstance. I am a bounty hunter, he said. I kill all kinds of shit on a regular basis. That thing was an equisaria. I don't know if you are lucky for being his target or extremely lucky to still be alive and sane of mind, he said, giving me a chuckle as he sat down in front of me. I continued listening as he was saying that he wanted me to use the money to start a new life elsewhere. It really pissed me off that he said that. His tone of voice was like it was normal, everyday business, as if I could live normally after that. I was beginning to feel weak, and with the little energy that I had left, I begged him, murmuring, to take me with him. I felt that I was going to faint. After all, I haven't eaten in days and I was feeling a very strong headache. He quickly gave me a lunch he had prepared that day, and I began eating it. It was a chicken with a bunch of vegetables along with temperature water bottle that he had packed in his backpack. I want to believe he felt pity for me, but I felt a lot of coldness from his part. As I was finishing eating, he was about to take off and I followed him. I had told him in our talk that the reason I wanted to be with him is because I wanted to feel safe. He told me that I would be allowed to be with him for a couple of days until I realised what I wanted to do with my life. He also said that he was going to make me feel safe again. I just had to follow and obey whatever he said without thinking twice. He was bothered by my request, but I believe he felt bad because of the look on his eyes. My mum taught me how to read emotions from looking into people's eyes, and his eyes clearly showed compassion or guilt, but you couldn't tell. I know this is boring to you, but this part of the story means a lot to me. This is the first time since my mum died that someone had cared this much for me. He gave me his jacket to cover my dress. He gave me food and allowed me to go along with him. He bought me clothes to replace the silly white dress I had, and I was beginning to look like my old self again. We rode in his motorcycle for hours without him saying a single word. I never asked him where he was going to take me, and it didn't seem like I had a choice anyway. I remember being lost in my head. Is this real? Why is this happening to me? Am I being punished by God? I usually cried whenever I thought of the face of that monster, its fingers and the way it moved, its eyes looking deeply at me and its disgusting odour. It was so horrible. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. This is the point where everything got worse than I thought. July 15. 2 days ago, we arrived at a cabin outside the forest area. I really don't know how else to describe it, really. Lots of tall trees and the natural wilderness making noises. I felt very disconnected from the world. As we got off his motorcycle, he finally spoke to me. Stay here. Don't move until I tell you to do so. He took off his motorcycle helmet and placed it on my arms. He grabbed the stone that was on the ground and threw it at one of the cabin windows. It didn't break, but it sure made a crack. I could not exactly tell why, but I saw a pair of hands being placed to the window from within the cabin and quickly taken off. For narration's sake, I guess I will call the guy I came with Mick. I think it is his name since he had a patch on his backpack that says Mick in one of the arm straps. As Mick got closer to the cabin's door, a slender and tall man emerged as the door opened. He looked at Mick with a look of despise and then looked at me with the same type of eyes. He was wearing a light brown robe with a hood on. I could not see his face other than the glow of his eyes from afar and the long grey beard he had. Lots of smoke came out of the cabin when he opened the door, and I think it was vapour, since it looked more like water evaporating than a cigarette smoke. Then the man's mood shifted as Mick and him exchanged a nod of recognition and went inside the cabin. I was around 30 minutes outside, looking at Mick's gear without touching. I spent most of the time looking at the design of his helmet. It certainly looked expensive. It was a dark helmet with an engraved design where the paint job made it look like a wolf's skull. You could not see anything inside the helmet, and it seemed very hard, like bulletproof. As I was glancing at one of the knives he had in his backpack, the door opened. Mick came with a bunch of arrows on his back while looking at the paper he had extended on his hands. What's that? I said, very mortified, as I had a short flashback when I saw those arrows. Don't ask questions. From now on, you are under his care. Jeremiah will take care of you when I'm gone. He didn't even look at me and took the helmet from my hands. He put the helmet on, used his phone to mark something on his map. He did not even say why or what was happening. I couldn't process the information as he was already on the road, leaving me behind. Wait, what? You can't leave? I broke from the unreal experience as I heard the voice of an old man. Girl, come in here, Jeremiah said firmly. I was unable to move. I was confused and scared while he was hurrying me to get inside. After I got inside his cabin, he removed his hood. It was an old man with crystal eyes. His face was almost blackened by how dark it was in the cabin despite the light of the day coming through the windows. Don't worry, I won't do anything to you. He paused. I heard that you wanted to feel safe again. He looked at me with his penetrating eyes and a grin that you could see through his beard. He had no pupils. They were completely white, as if he had cataracts or cloudy eyes. Tonight is your trial. If you think you are the first person to come in my door with a similar story, you wouldn't know, because all of those people end up dead anyways. His calmed voice, his manner of speaking. Every time his deep voice would finish a sentence, I could hear my heart pounding in fear. My eyes were watering as he stood up and handed me an old pistol. Do you know where you are, little girl?" He crouched as he handed the gun, leaning closer to me. "We are right in front of the Loud Thunder Forest. Many people have gone missing. The fucking government is great at erasing their existence." He paused, pointed outside to the forest through the broken window. "Inside that forest lives a feared creature that could tear both of us apart in seconds, and it's called a Wendigo. Have you heard of it?" He continued talking right in front of my face. My eyes looked down while I was shakingly holding the gun. I was desperate to leave and run away. I didn't want to be there. It was getting hotter in the cabin, and the old man got away walking towards the other side of the cabin, where there were many flasks and herbs on top of a wooden table. He ignored my silence and said something that made everything around me silent. "Your job is to kill that beast." His words echoed in my mind and made me hear my own heartbeats. I broke the silence by yelling him, "No!" dropping the gun on the floor as I stood up. All of this felt so unreal. I was feeling my stomach twisting as the atmosphere made me freeze. "Do you want to live?" He sounded extremely irritated and annoyed. I didn't respond as I was in a total panic. "If you pass this trial, you will no longer feel afraid of such things. You will prove yourself capable of living and won't worry about pests like the thing that gave you that trauma. Worst case scenario, you die in the most painful way possible, but at least you will rest," he said as he was trying not to laugh in his sarcastic tone. "No, shut up, leave me alone." I remember I didn't want to hear anything else as I put my hands on my ears. I was on my knees looking down with my eyes closed, but I could hear my tears hitting the wooden floor. They sounded like a tick-tock in what it felt like a long silence. "Fine, I'll kill you myself and make you a favour by giving you peace." I heard him standing up and saw he was reaching for the gun that I had close to my feet. "No, please, please don't do this to me, please!" I broke down, looking up at him. He gave me the revolver, explaining to me that there was no time, that I had to pull myself up. He was right. I can't live up like this. I was shattered, but I still wanted to live. After I calmed down, I took the gun, murmuring, "Will it kill it?" trying to feel better. He gave me a big grin and told me, "Look, girl, a good rule of thumb is that it breathes, it can die. There is no such thing as immortality, even though the Wendigo is fast, intelligent, and the best hunter in that forest. It can be killed by simple silver bullets." He took off a couple of bullets from his pocket and showed me them from afar as they shined. He gave one to me and I stared at my reflection in the silver. After that, we had a long chat before nightfall. He gave me information about the beast. Wendigo. Why would something like that exist? The man described the Wendigo as a flash. It makes human noises. It can talk and lure anyone. A nocturnal creature that kills and eats humans without any mercy. He emphasized that he could also pay me very well if I could extract the eyes and remove the ice-cold heart it had, intact and undamaged. But I really didn't care. The old man gave me a sharp silver knife along with a long coat that was camouflaged to help me blend in with the dark. Nighttime came, and the wind was loud as the night I was attacked by the Exorcising. The atmosphere was similar, but I only had one thing on mind. I really pulled myself up, but my gut was twisting. I could feel my heart pounding in my throat. The night was dark, cold, and loud. I was outside the cabin staring at the dark forest, gun on my hand, and a sheathed silver knife in my hip. I couldn't use my phone, since the flashlight would make my presence obvious. I walked for what felt like hours. I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere and got lost in the heart of the forest. I walked straight, so I knew I could just turn back. I guess I was so scared that I didn't notice where I was stepping. I tripped and fell a couple of feet down, landed on my shoulder over the dirt covered by branches and leaves. It didn't hurt much, but my knees were bloody since I slid on the way down. I felt pain and began crying in silence. The gun was shining a couple of feet away from me, and this is the moment when I saw a fox, the size of a big dog, looking at me from a bush. I stared at it. Its shining eyes were so beautiful, the fur looked unique, and it was moving away gracefully. I don't know what it was, but it hypnotized me. I felt like I had to follow it. I stood up and I took the gun. I followed the poor sound straight ahead and it led me to a campsite. It was abandoned, but the place was still warm. The camp beds were torn apart except for one that looked to be untouched. There was blood that decorated the leaves on the ground. I was so lost in thought that I didn't notice how the wind had stopped making any sounds. The forest was silent, and the air got very dense. I got a knot in my throat and began loading the gun with the bullets Jeremiah had given to me. As I filled the chamber, I heard the worst scream behind me. It sounded like an adult man screaming for his life, but mixed with a woman's crying for help. I closed my eyes out of fear and very sloppily turned, shooting 2 times at whatever was behind me. I felt something, incredibly fast, passing beside me. I heard it again, the same scream, but instead of help, I heard the distorted voice of a little kid screaming, "Dad! Mom!" It made me scream in terror and fall to the ground. I opened my eyes and looked around, but everything was now darker, and the tears didn't let me see much. I saw a shadow pass by, aimed at it, and I shot again, but I didn't hit it. "Shit, shit, shit!" I yelled as I only had 2 more shots. "Where are you?" I angrily screamed. Then, something from behind me pushed me to the ground. It made the noise again, and this time I heard the multiple voices screaming of horror of what I thought one cried, "God, please!" This time, I saw it. I saw its large, slender, and pale form. I saw its face. Even if it was dark, I could see its white eyes. Its deformed face with the long grin it had. It was a look of evil, a look that told me that I could not escape. It was toying with me. It was having fun. It raised its hand with its long, sharp claws as it slowly began walking towards me. I grabbed the gun and tried to shoot its heart, where Jeremiah had told me to shoot, but I aimed badly and hit its leg. It screamed in pain and anger and began hitting the ground in fury while looking at me. The creature's cries were louder than my own and really hurt my ears. It stopped yelling and stood up straight without making a sound. It used one of its long nails and pointed at its leg where it had been hit. I was horrified by looking at it, and that it hadn't affected it, not even a little. It grinned at me and moved closer as I was crawling backwards trying to get away. I closed my eyes and began calling for my mum. As the creature made laughing noises, I heard its laugh shifting towards screams of anger, and I started hearing multiple footsteps from the beast and something else. As I opened my eyes, looking back at the Wendigo, I saw that it was fighting with the big fox that I'd seen earlier, but this time it looked more like a dog. The fox had its sharp teeth piercing the Wendigo's neck from behind as the monster was trying to get it off itself. The Wendigo grabbed the fox and threw it to the camp with such horrifying strength, making the camp fall to pieces. But the fox came out, attacked back to the monster as it was nothing. The Wendigo's skin was being teared by the fox's bites, but it seemed to have no effect on it. The Wendigo got away from the fox and stood up in front of me, giving me its back. The fox was at the other side. It was now growling in a defensive position, looking into the Wendigo's eyes. I don't know where I got this from, but I felt peace. I felt something. I felt my mum's energy telling me that everything was going to be all right. I felt so tranquil and peaceful. I grabbed the gun and gently stood up. As the Wendigo made the outrageous cry of various people calling for help, I shot the last bullet into the back of its head, cutting the monster's scream to silence. The Wendigo fell to the ground as I quickly grabbed the knife I had and began stabbing it multiple times until I saw its heart and then began stabbing it too. I turned it around and began stabbing everything, mutilating it. I was no longer scared. I was no longer at peace. I was angry, and I was releasing everything on that piece of shit. As I stood up and walked away from what now looked like a bear's leftover meal, I fainted. I only saw the red fox sitting, staring at me with its glowing white eyes. I woke up. It was now daytime. I was now in a different part of the forest. My knees were bandaged, but I was extremely sore. I felt pain everywhere in my body. I saw a guy approaching me as I was coming back to my senses. "Your luck keeps on surprising me, Jessica." I recognised the guy's voice, the outline of his body and his hair. He was now in front of me, sitting on top of a rock observing me. "Where were you? You did this to me." I was surprised to see him again, but also angry for him leaving me behind. Anyway, I felt extremely relieved on seeing him again. "Yeah, great job hunting down that Wendigo. A juvenile, but a Wendigo nevertheless." He came closer to me, handed me a bottle of water. I regained my sight and saw he was wearing a dark outfit, similar of the previous night. He was covered in blood and had a sincere smile on his face. He had followed my footsteps from the old man's cabin, he said. He saw me passed out at the campsite next to the corpse of the Wendigo, hours after I'd killed it. While you were busy killing our friend over there, I was completing my contract. I went to the Wendigo's nest to eliminate the alpha and try to rescue whoever was still alive, he said as he was trying to get me up. "Oh, did anyone make it out alive?" I said as I was leaning on him to stand up. I remember I was more than worried about those people than myself, really. 2 guys. I don't remember anything. There were only 2 Wendigos in that cave. There were 6 other corpses. I can't tell if they were men or women, nor how old they were, Mick said, giving a chuckle at the end of his sentence, but I did not understand what was so funny. I asked him what happened to the other Wendigos, and he simply pointed to the bloody bag he had next to him. He took me up in his arms since he noticed that I couldn't stand nor walk very well. As he was taking me to the cabin, I did notice along the way that he had a scar on the left part of his neck. Hard to tell, but it looked like a deep cut. Hopefully, I won't get any of those, I thought. I told him never to leave me behind again. He looked at me surprised, but did not respond. We got back to the cabin, and the old man was waiting for us on an old chair outside. He gave us a bright smile and looked at me with awe. Mick sat me on his motorcycle as he began calmly walking towards the old man with the bloody bag he had. He threw the bag at the feet and then landed a punch on the face of Jeremiah, bringing him down in his chair, making his teeth shatter in pieces. "You piece of shit!" Jeremiah painfully yelled, putting his hand on his bloody mouth. "You sent her to fight a Wendigo with a fucking revolver? You really wanted her to die, didn't you?" Mick grabbed the man and stood him up. The old man reached for a water skin he had on him and began drinking. He screamed in so much pain that I even felt it. But I was numb to his suffering. I somehow enjoyed it. "I was making you a favour, Wolf. You should know better." The old man started drinking again, drinking the last drop of whatever he was drinking. Jeremiah leaned on his cabin and began twisting his mouth while his closed eyes made that look that gave the impression that he was in severe pain. "Fuck you. This is the last time I help you with Wendigos. Find another bounty hunter to fulfill your request," Mick said while staring at him, waiting for the screams to stop. The old man composed himself, stood up straight, and with his deep and relieved voice asked, 3 hearts, 3 eyes? No, 2 hearts, 3 eyes. You will pay us the full amount, Mick said in a threatening voice. The old man broke down laughing and said, "Ha ha, curse you, Wolf." He then proceeded to give Mick the money while got the bloody bag. Mick walked towards me and got on his motorcycle with me on the back. He glanced at the old man one last time and I saw him waving at me, smiling with his bloody broken teeth. I looked down but then looked back at him. He now had his teeth intact and did not have any blood on him. I was in shock as he waved goodbye before going back to his cabin. I could not tell you more. Maybe my eyes lied to me. Next thing I know, while on the road, I was hugging Mick and thanked him for coming back for me. I didn't cry. I felt safe. The old man was not lying. I was no longer afraid. I felt better than ever, as if I had been reborn. I still have chills and still am horrified at what I have lived through so far, but I am numb towards it. The next day, Mick and I arrived at a motel and rented 2 rooms. He had deposited the money on a bank account and told me that I had earned $700 despite me ruining my Wendigo's materials. And here I am writing this now. Oh wait, Mick is calling me. I'll be back. I think this guy is hiding something from me. I just came back after I had a talk with him. Well, as the old man called him, Wolf. We had a quick chat of what we were going to do tomorrow, and out of curiosity, I asked him if he had seen a big red fox in the forest. He looked at me, giving me a surprised yet sorrowful look in his eyes. "A red fox?" he said with a tone of voice that reflected his shock. "Yes, it had beautiful bright eyes. It saved me from the Wendigo or Wendigo, whatever that thing was. It bit its neck and fought it before I shot the monster's head," I told him, while also reliving the experience in my mind. "No." His voice shifted. He said it very coldly, but he gained his composure. "I didn't see anything." He opened his room's door and began closing it. "Thanks, Mick, and good night." I smiled at him, trying to be friendly and also feeling very thankful that he came back for me. As he was beginning to close the door, he looked deeply into my eyes. He had a look as if he was being insulted, yet did not lose his temper. He simply said, "That's not my name. Go and rest." "That is not his name." Well, I really don't have a head to think about this anymore. This post has already gone too long and I am already very sleepy. But I feel very satisfied writing this, like when I was a little girl writing my personal diary. Today is also the last time I post in this forum. I will now start publishing at a forum where Wolf told me I could see stories of other people around the world. There is a hidden website where there are people who hunt all kinds of stuff, and they keep each other updated on their travels and share valuable information to support each other. Can you believe this? I can still feel the adrenaline of yesterday, but still, I'm very sore. I will post this story in that website too, under the username Lullaby. Thanks everyone for reading, and have a good night. Wow, and phew, that was a long recording. Hope you guys enjoyed that one as much as I. Did record this the other night when it first came out, but as I mentioned on the community tab, it just didn't record it, whether it's a program error or my mic, I'm not sure. But I hope you enjoyed it all the same. As ever, please do let me know down below in the comments though. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel further, help us spread our message and our community further. And as ever, I hope you're all having a wonderful weekend at home with friends and family. And above all, remember, be safe, not sorry. I have been tracking a bounty hunter story ever since 2016. Part 5. Let's get straight into that. This journal is a continuation of Part 3. Title: Poltergeist. Posted by Crimson on January 5th, 2012. On October the 3rd, I decided it was time to get off my arse and visit the haunted school I'd been anticipating to see. College classes had been a pain and didn't let me have the time to go, but I had that free weekend to get the job done. The area was far, around 1 hour away from home, but the possibility of me scoring another good hunt justified all the trouble. My parents were out for a wedding. I had no school nor stupid commitments. The day was perfect for my little adventure. I remember I waited for it to be 7 p.m. I grabbed my cheap gym bag and threw in a flashlight with 4 extra batteries, a printed copy of a prayer glued to the back of a small Bible, for good luck I guess, and a bunch of plastic containers, but nothing special, really. It felt like winter. The fucking place is out in the open and it gets extremely chilling out there. Add the coldness to the change in temperature when a true ghost is present, you would probably start to experience Raynaud's syndrome. I decided to take my leather jacket to at least keep myself warm enough and not look like a total fool in a hoodie wandering around the land. That was about it. There was no rocket science when you deal with spirits, as far as I knew back then. All I had to do was get to the location X, cite the prayer, and the last thing you know is that the evil spirit is getting dragged to another dimension by an unknown force. I was walking back and forward, downstairs to upstairs, until my alarm hit 9 p.m. I saw through my window and it was extremely dark outside. I stopped rehearsing my chant, left, and locked the house. It indeed took me around an hour to get there on a motorcycle. It was foreign land to me. I saw a big old house that had an unusual yellow paint on its roof, as the local Ghostbuster stories tell. That house is where the owner of the land lives, and he has the key to the school gates. The house lights were off, so I supposed he was asleep at this time. Outside the town was windy. Not many trees, but more of what a rural area should look like. Many private acres of land owned by different people, and a very crappy road filled with cow shit and insects. Stupid insects were all over, splashed on my helmet, so I had to take it off and put it in a bag, making it heavier. I got to the yellow-roofed house, and there was a man outside looking at the gate that leads to a large concrete building at a distance. The old man looked at me with an irritated, angry voice and yelled at me to go away, that he was fed up with constant ignorance, he said. He was ranting but sounded very tired, and, to top it off, he said he was going to call the cops if I was going to be a nuisance. I really didn't want to push my luck, so I just turned back and left. Yeah, I just went around his territory, making as least noise as possible, and parked a bit outside his land. I hid my motorcycle next to a yellow car and a very old truck. The darkness did not let me see clearly too much of both vehicles, but they caught my attention. What were they doing here? Did these belong to another landowner? Questions like that popped into my mind so naturally, I was curious. At this point, I looked like a thief because I was glancing to see the dirty red Ford. There was a glossary on its rear mirror, and the paint job on the truck was already coming off. Other than that, the seats looked ripped through. On the other hand, the small yellow car looked brand new, and I had a bunch of junk food inside and beer bottles. Crickets were loud that night. The bird noises, the insects, the land was alive. It almost felt like a warning to keep humans away. I sort of knew where I was positioned. I knew the direction of where the school building was, and it looked like the people from the truck and the car were also headed that way. The ground was muddy, and there were footprints that pointed east where the school was. I could tell there were at least 3 people, but I just followed a small pair of shoes. As I got into the grass territory, I lost the other pair of footprints. It looked like they went another direction, and at this time, I regretted not having brought another water on me. My lips were drying off quickly, and I was beginning to feel thirsty. I began seeing the building now closer. I stopped following the footprints and began walking towards the school. It felt like something was staring back, and the ambient just made a knot in my throat. Branches were snapping as I walked over them, and the insect noise were growing louder, to the point I felt like I was listening to distant roars, while the birds over me were moving the tree branches along with their leaves. After a short walk, I was finally beside the infamous Golden School, a 3-story building made of concrete, vandalized, broken windows on the 2nd and 3rd floor, a big wooden door entrance, and a very humble playground on the side. I did not get any closer though. I leaned on the tree behind me and sat down. I wanted to make sure the old man did not see me from wherever he was at, and so I remained hidden for a while. It was around 10:40 at that point, I think. I opened my bag and made sure the flashlight worked by replacing its batteries. I had my phone in my pocket and the Bible fitted in the pocket of my jacket. The school was a creepy yet fascinating sight, very hypnotizing in my own opinion. However, there was this sense of uneasiness when looking through the 2nd floor's broken windows. It gave you a very menacing impression. Something was not right in that building. I was feeling nervous as hell. I had experienced dealing with spirits in abandoned houses, but that school looked straight off a horror movie. Last thing I fucking wanted was to almost get a heart attack when I saw how a guy looked out of a window laughing and fooling around. I jumped out of surprise and cursed him in silence. He looked like a teenager, and I began hearing a laugh of a girl that was probably behind him. They were alive, I am sure, and messing around, playing in the devil's den. Jesus Christ, I thought. I could not get inside and perform the exorcism with those 2 in there, primarily because they would talk to the authorities or expose my work or identity. I don't want publicity, so I just waited. and eventually I fell asleep. It was a very peaceful atmosphere if you closed your eyes and relaxed. To me, it passed around 10 seconds before yelling and screaming woke me up as running individuals passed near my spot. "Joe, wait for me!" The girl desperately screamed at a distance. Her and the guy's running footsteps faded as the angry wind blew my dizziness away. I checked my phone to see the time, and it indicated 3:02 a.m. How was it possible that I was unconscious for that long? I was confused, but still, I dragged my body and picked up my bag, flashlight on hand, and began walking towards the school. The school seemed bigger than before. Not only that, the playground seemed alive. The swing sets were moving as the wind pushed them, and the different wooden play sets were also to some extent moving by themselves. As I finally got near the front door, two figures emerged from the other side of the building, walking towards me. For fuck's sake, I thought out loud. I could not handle losing more time, and I was already very annoyed when I saw these two people. One was holding a very colourful green water gun. As I pointed the flashlight at it, at first glance, I thought they were part of a church, or since I saw their outfits first. Notice how I said outfit instead of uniform. Those outfits were straight from a Halloween costume store. There was a girl wearing a blank mask, dressed like a nun. Her pale hands and legs looked like there were meshes in the dark concrete walls, while the guy, taller than her, the same mask, was wearing a pastor outfit without sleeves. "You gotta be fucking kidding me," I told him in a soothing tone. "What are you doing here?" both the guy and me said at the same time. His voice was calm while mine was irritated. The still dark night didn't allow me to see him and her perfectly. I had to turn off the flashlight because I wasn't sure how long it was going to last, and recharging would cost time. The guy walked closer to me, and I noticed he was about my height and looked somewhat jacked. "Look, bro, just give me 20 minutes inside here. After that, you and your girlfriend, you can do whatever you want to do in there." I told him, trying to dismiss them. I was hurried because I did not know if my parents were coming today or tomorrow, and was not in the mood at the moment to make small talk. "Who the fuck are you?" His voice grew louder and more confronting too. We got closer and began arguing. None of us truly said what exactly we were doing there. I was telling him that it was none of their business, and I was saying nonsense at that point. The girl beside him was off though. She never said a word. Instead, she was looking up the whole time and zoned out of our encounter. After a couple of seconds, she touched the guy's arm, grabbing his attention, and she signalled to him to look up. We paused. Both of us looked up, and I was petrified to see a large humanoid shadowy figure with very long hands and deformed face looking at us from the second floor. It was meters away from us, but it still felt that it was very close to me, and it could grab me and crush me if it wanted. Its expression on its face was not visible, but something inside of me said that it had a big wide smile on its disproportionate head. It quickly went inside after all three of us noticed it. My throat got colder, and my feet did not want to move. That second of seeing that shadow felt like an eternity engraved in my mind. The guy looked back at me. I looked at the eye sockets of his mask and said to him sincerely in the best tone, "Let me handle it." He also lowered his guard, and I guess he saw through me. He said that they were there for the same reason, and that we could do this together. I did not see a problem with it. I believed him, or wanted to believe him, at that point. I can be very hot-headed, but 3 is better than 1. I do things alone, but that monster, I did not want to do that alone. I opened the door and got inside. The two of them began walking towards the door after checking their backpacks, but the door was closed very quickly by its own. Out of shock, I began walking backwards facing the door. That door sound really hurt my ears, not to mention my heart pounded all the way up to my throat. If I had noticed something in all of my experience with spirits or evil, is that silence is their key weapon to make you feel uneasy. Although the windows were broken, you could not hear shit inside the building beside your own breath. As I walked towards the stairs to get this whole nightmare over, I was hearing how something was mimicking my footsteps on the second floor. The second floor was made out of wood. It was squeaking old wood. The thing, or whatever it was directly above me, moving towards anywhere that I was going. I walked 3 steps and stopped. It also stopped. I began quickly walking towards the end of the hall, and it also followed me. Halfway there, a staircase in front of me. I stopped and grabbed a concrete piece at the side and threw it above me to the ceiling. I was extremely annoyed. The chant does not work until I have visible contact with a spirit. Otherwise, it doesn't seem to work, in case you are wondering why I was not doing anything other than walking towards that monster. A moment of silence followed the rock when it fell back to the ground. During that moment, I noticed how all the rooms in the school were not completely shut. They were opened a little bit, enough for someone to see you through the thin visible line between the door and the wall. My bravery flew away from me and my soul as I began hearing how it above me started running towards the stairs. It was running towards me, and my whole body froze in time. I pointed the flashlight at the stairs, and the stomps of the ghost were getting closer and closer. All the doors in my floor closed while this thing was going down the stairs until it stopped. Nothing other than the cold air glued me to the surface of my skin. I looked around me. The hall was dull, but I felt the presence of something observing me. I climbed the stairs, and they were dusty and needed maintenance. Who knows how old that school was, and as I reached the second floor, I felt that I was back on the first floor again. Everything looked similar, but there was no big wooden door behind me. The hall was similar, but the classrooms were all closed except one. I took out my phone to see the time, but it didn't turn on. My phone wasn't working, and it was very hot to the touch. I walked towards the classroom with the door opened, knowing that sooner than later, the motherfucker would appear. Chairs were spread around the classroom, leaving the middle empty where some clothing was laying around the floor. I imagined it was from the clowns that came earlier. The clothes didn't seem to be old or dirty, but were very cold. On the teacher's desk, there was an old photograph. It showed a middle-aged man holding a diploma. He was smiling, but there were pen marks that drew horns and a moustache on his face. On the back of the picture, it said in very messy handwriting, "Pig." I settled my bag behind the desk carefully so that the glasses don't break. I took out the small Bible, but as soon as I pulled it out, it was taken away from my hand and landed on one of the corners of the room. As I looked back, the chairs began moving towards me slowly. A bunch of air entered the room from a broken window, and the whole damn building felt like a freezer. I began citing a prayer, but the chairs began launching at me. They were made of wood and hit the walls hard. One of them managed to hit my arm, and it hurt like a son of a bitch. I ran out of the room and closed the door, leaving my bag behind. Even though I did not see what was going on inside, I felt the chairs hidden and stacking behind the door, as I was pushing with my whole body, holding the door until they stopped. I laughed out loud and out of relief, but not a moment passed after I felt something grab me from my jacket and threw me with all of its force to the other side of the hall. I landed on my shoulder and did not even have a chance to react before I got dragged to my feet again and back to the classroom door that was now open. I tried yelling a prayer once again, but a chair that was now out in the hall launched at me as a projectile, and I covered my face. I had tears in my eyes. I had tears in my face. I'm not going to lie. The thing stopped grabbing me, and I tried standing up. The shadow was now more visible. It was humanoid and had a marked grin on its deformed face. It grabbed me again and pushed me from wall to wall. I felt like fainting. It would not even let me speak at all. It finally stopped and was just holding me up in the air pushed back to the wall. And its long hands that were so damn cold were around my neck. I was pushed against the wall and I saw its face, the eyes completely black, the skin melted and stitch marks around its mouth. It was mad. Yeah, I could tell that it was angry. I realised that this was the end of the road for me. I smiled at it, spitting blood at its face and gave him a chuckle. I wasn't scared. I had accepted my fate anyway. The adrenaline of that hunt was rushing in my blood. I wanted to live, but I ran out of luck, I thought. I closed my eyes as life was leaving my body, and once again I heard my grandmother praying. And I tried to pray with her, out loud, but the spirit pushed me again harder to the wall, and I was silenced, and everything was blurry. A few drops of water hit my face, and I was let go from the force holding me up. I landed on my ass and began feeling all of the pain resonating in my body. I saw the priest shooting water at the spirit. It looked very dumb, but somehow the shadow was retrieving, and all of the chairs began coming out of the classroom. The other classroom doors were making noises as if the other chairs were also trying to get out. The priest threw the water gun to the floor and began citing a chant that was different but had the same kind of familiar Latin tone. The chairs began launching at him and me too. I began moving, dodging, and got to my feet despite the pain. I could not yell, but I tried my best at citing my own words. Another figure came up the stairs, and it was this time the nun, holding a crucifix on her hands, yelling the same prayer the priest was saying. The shadow threw a chair at the priest that hit his leg, making him drop down. I got closer, and one of the chairs hit the nerve of my elbow. It hurt so bad that I got really mad. I began screaming so loud the prayer I knew. The spirit began twitching in pain, yelling a three-dimensional scream. The whole building felt like it was vibrating. The chairs were now sloppy, and the spirit felt weak as it was twitching on the floor and yelling in anger. All three of us continued praying until the spirit launched to the ceiling and then dropped with the same intensity to the floor. I knew it was that force. It was trying to drag it to another dimension. The spirit was yelling in pain, but there was a sorrow in its voice. It was saying,
"It wasn't me. Don't let me go, please. It wasn't me."
It launched into the air again and then got dragged down with such force that the floor trembled. I think I saw bright sparks and the smell of something burning as the spirit got dragged to somewhere else. A bunch of goo spread to the hall as the spirit splashed to the floor one last time. Bingo! I was so damn relieved, but I could not move too much as I felt I had a couple of broken bones. I looked at the priest and he looked back to me. We both laughed like maniacs. The nun came running to the priest, very preoccupied. She had a very soft voice. The guy told her something and she left downstairs. I got up and went for my bag with all the soreness in the world. And once I came back, I dropped to the floor and began taking out the flasks to get all of the ectoplasm in. The priest looked at me confused at what I was doing, but he offered his help. I didn't care at that point. After all, the flasks were filled except for one. I crawled to the wall to stay seated straight. He got up and told me that I had to go to hospital, but I didn't want to go. Not to mention trespassing criminal charges, but also the trouble with my parents. I didn't want to get past that. Somehow, I knew that visiting the fortune teller was the right idea, but I was in no position to ride a motorcycle. All of this was going on in my head until the priest broke his silence. "I'm Mick. What's your name?" he said, offering me a hand to stand up. I opened my mouth, but I chuckled a bunch of vomit. "Hey, take it easy, man. That was a hell of a poltergeist." He tried to get me on my feet, and I got a good look at him. He had taken off his mask, and I saw a very young man with ginger hair and blue eyes. His long hair reached his chin, but despite a big scar on his mouth, he had a very friendly face. We went to the classroom, and I sat down in one of the chairs. I picked up my small Bible I had in my pocket. The nun soon entered the classroom as she followed Mick's voice. She was no longer wearing her mask nor the veil. As she got closer to me to also give me a pain pill, I noticed she had long brown wavy hair and brown eyes. A very pretty, round and angelic face, but was giving me a killer stare. She quickly turned to Mick, saying that she felt there was no longer any presence in the building. I asked them if they were hunters too, but they looked at me again confused. Mick said that they were vanished exorcists from a secret Catholic order. They made a living by exorcising ghosts or any type of spirits that caused trouble in the United States. Mick got closer to me as he grabbed a picture that was on top of the desk and handed me a bottle of fresh water that the girl had in a bag. I began drinking like there was no tomorrow. He said that her name was Mary, and she was his sister by blood. Both had been raised to become exorcists from a very young age, but did not tell me why or where they vanished. I did not want to ask. He asked me if I was an exorcist too. I just answered, sort of, and that I just wanted what the ghost left behind, as I pointed at a bag filled with the goo flasks. He laughed and said that ectoplasm does not make a good souvenir. It quickly disappears, or just looks like a spiderweb if it doesn't get conserved right. Mary was looking outside the window and said that the lights of the old man's house were on, and that we should leave before the cops came, just in case. I grabbed my bag, and Mick helped me get to the motorcycle in safety. The land was quiet, peaceful. The freezing loud wind had gone away. The birds and bugs were making noise again. They got me into their truck, and it smelled like cherries in there, but there was no source of smell as far as I could see. Mary began driving and was constantly changing the radio station, and the truck stumbled onto the stupid road. The seats were as rough as I thought, and were grasping my back with each bump of the road. Mick had asked me where to take me, and I gave him the directions of the fortune teller, just to give her all the shit we had gathered. My gut was telling me that this was the right thing to do. The clock indicated that it was 6:50 a.m. I checked my phone to see if that was working, and now it was working. When we got to the fortune teller's house, I noticed the damn cat was outside on top of the billboard. He quickly jumped towards the house and got inside by an open window. We got out and rang the bell. The door opened, and the woman looked very distressed after seeing how fucked up we all looked. She began asking questions of what happened. You know, all that sort of stuff. Mick explained that we were against the poltergeist and explained everything that had happened. She looked very mortified, as if she were deciding what to do, and eventually got a small flask. She had inside a lockbox that she hid in one of her drawers. She said that she owed my father too much, and that it's only paying a debt she had. Once I drank the liquid thinking it was some sort of medicine, I began feeling so much pain in my bones and in my throat. It was burning inside of me. I wanted to scream so loud, but held it in. It was unbelievable. I let out a couple of tears because it did hurt inside really bad. And after a couple of seconds, all of the pain went away. I mean, all the pain gone away. Mick and Mary looked at me in shock, speechless. The woman got a mirror and showed me my face. It was me. My mouth was covered in blood, but I had no marks. It just looked like I was wearing Halloween blood. I could walk like nothing. I wasn't sore no more. I do not know what sort of shit that was, but it was incredible. She smiled at me and said that it was a potion, a very potent one that uses very specific materials, ectoplasm being one of them. I was so grateful. I also told her that I'd brought more of the goo. She was surprised but told me that she could not pay for it. Mick asked how much it was worth, and while Mary began playing with the cat on the other side, I felt that I owed Mick and his sister that much, and so I decided to split the earnings of whatever I was going to gain. However, Mick said not to worry about it. They had finished their contract and would not leave town empty-handed. He offered me to take me back to my motorcycle, but I refused. We stayed a little longer, and the fortune teller told us that she is a retired alchemist. Apparently, there are sorcerers, alchemists and witches walking among us. They are actively working with materials in order to use for forbidden magic. I was directed to another sorcerer in another town that is very far from here. His name is Joseph. He serves as a transaction medium between a secret market and other sorcerers. He would be willing to buy and was looking for people to give a contract if I was interested. By now, I should tell you that the fortune teller's name is Lisa. She was nice enough to take me back by my motorcycle. I could not help to ask what she meant by owing my father too much. Lisa only said that they were friends since high school, and that he had supported her ever since he discovered she was playing with magic. Other people made fun of her, and he defended her in the worst of cases. Noble, but I felt she was lying, or that there was more to what that story was than that. Anyways, all of that just to come back home empty-handed. I thought that that was the end of my extracurricular activities. I realized I could not do things alone. I could get myself killed if I encounter another poltergeist. Who knows? Maybe something worse. I was staring at the flasks of goo. I wanted to pour them in a sink to leave this life behind, but my doorbell rang. I came to the door and opened it. Motherfucker Mick was there, now in normal clothes, looking happy to see me. He said that he got the money from his contract and wanted to share. I refused and was just confused on how the fuck he got to my house. And apparently, Lisa told him. He asked me if I wanted to go and visit the sorcerer. Him and his sister were going to that city in case I wanted to tag along, and they could use my help. It's been a month since that happened, and lots of shit has happened ever since. I have abandoned school and moved out of that house. I told my parents I got an internship in medical research out of town, that I would be away for a long time. I know it's a lie, but I don't want to tell them the truth. I still keep in touch with them, but I know this lie won't hold up forever. Working along with Mick and Mary has been a very fascinating experience. There is more to the church than what books tell us. Poltergeists, wraiths, ghosts, spirits, animal spirits, and everything is nuts. We are making good money out of this too, and maybe I can convince them to ditch that old shit truck for a pair of motorcycles. While we are travelling together, we do not live together. We settle in motels. I always go for a different room. Each one of us has a different bank account where we split our earnings. We have shared strategies and exchange information on types of ghosts we've encountered. The prayer I say apparently is Hebrew, not Latin. Mick has been a really good friend. He plans everything ahead of time, unlike me. They don't talk too much about their family nor their past, but neither do I. We are a good team, despite his sister Mary not talking to me at all. She and her brother are well coordinated, but she works mostly on her laptop, researching about wherever she researches and whatever she researches. Not bothered at all, really. It's been good writing this. I'll post whenever something out of the ordinary happens, since ghost stories are boring, in my opinion. By the way, happy birthday, Lisa. Wow, awesome addition there, WolfsCrown, the author. Thank you so much once again for allowing me to make a rendition of your awesome work. Guys and girls, you know the drill. As ever, please do let us know down below in the comments what you thought. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And of course, don't forget to hashtag TeamFEAR. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Slap that subscribe button and throat punch the notification bell to stay up to date with all DMT Forest Affair posts and videos. I hope you're all well and happy, and above all, remember, be safe, not sorry.